Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I have for you a video that a few of you had requested, and it's a spend versus splurge video for makeup items. So I thought I would run over all the stuff that I use on my face and basically kind of classify them into categories and then tell you whether I think it's worth spending or whether I think it's worth saving. So without further ado, let's get straight into it because there's a lot of stuff to get through. But before that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you already haven't. I upload twice a week and I would love to have you back on the channel. And also don't forget to hit the little bell right next to the subscribe button so that you get a notification every time I upload a new video. Okay, so let's start everything off with primer, and primer is one of the things I actually think you should spend on. I'm not a huge fan of using primer, to be honest. Like, I don't use it most of the time, but recently I have started using the Professional Primer by Benefit, and I only use it down my T-zone, and I do find that it makes a difference, especially if I want my makeup to last for a really long time, if I'm going to be filming or if I'm going to be going on a night out and I want my makeup to last longer. I only apply it down my T-zone because that's where I'm most oily and that's where my foundation tends to fade the most. But I have to say it does make a difference, although I don't think it's essential, especially if you don't have very oily skin. If you do want to spend though, I think it's worth getting something that's not kind of super premium like a Dior or a Chanel. I think Benefit is a nice kind of happy medium, but I also think the ones from the drugstore are a little bit silicone-y, and that affects the blendability of your foundation on top. So my general rule with this spend and splurge theme that I'm going to tell you now is that I think that products that need like very high coverage or a lot of blendability are worth spending on, whereas products that don't need either very high coverage or a lot of blendability and don't affect the blendability of other products, you can get away with getting them from the drugstore and save a little bit of money. So with the primer, the reasoning is the same. Basically, the primer affects the blendability of the foundation. So if your primer is really silicone-y, or if your primer is kind of like hanging onto dry patches, it's going to make your foundation look a little bit patchy. So for that reason, I think it's worth spending on one that's a little bit better quality. I also think that the primer lasts a very long time, so you can get away with, you know, spending on it because you're not going to run out of it very quickly. A little bit definitely goes a long way when it comes to primer. I've had this one from Benefit, which is the mini size of the Professional. I've had it for about 3 months and it's still going strong, so I definitely think, you know, you don't use a lot of product and you don't need to use a lot of product, so this one is definitely worth spending on. Moving on to foundation now. Again, it's a product that affects the coverage and the blendability, and I think it's definitely worth spending on these. I know that there's a lot of drugstore foundations which are really good. Like, I know the L'Oreal True Match foundation has got a lot of hype, but I personally find that whenever I've used a drugstore foundation, they don't last as long. They don't kind of blend as beautifully as the high-end ones, and generally overall they're just not as great as the, you know, ones that are from a little bit higher quality. This one from YSL, it's the Le Teint Touche Eclat foundation, is my absolute favorite. It's a medium coverage foundation. I find that it blends really, really beautifully. It's kind of glowy but not too glowy, and it doesn't dry my skin out. But I have to say, recently I've been trying this Fenty Beauty foundation. This one's a lot cheaper than this one. This one is sort of on the MAC price range, which is sort of a medium brand. It's not very high end, but it's also not kind of a cheapy drugstore brand. And this one has got a beautiful texture. If you want more of a matte finish, this one's really good, really buildable. It has sort of a medium to full coverage. You can definitely build it up to a full. This one's sort of more medium to light coverage, but also it's got good kind of buildability. And these two are really, really good. This one's a bit more expensive. This one's a little cheaper, but they're both sort of on the medium to high end. And I think foundation is something that you use very little of. You don't need a big quantity. You can really blend it out, and it's the base where all your makeup is going to sit. So if that's not good and if it doesn't have a good finish, it's not going to make the rest of your makeup look good. So I definitely think it's worth spending on, and it's also because these high-end foundations have a much more longer lasting power than the drugstore ones. Moving now on to corrector. I use the Naked one from Urban Decay, and it's really, really good. But I do think that brands like LA Girl do really, really good correctors, and I know that L'Oreal do some as well, and Maybelline do some as well, and they're all really good. Again, the corrector isn't something that you need to build on, it's just to color correct. I would go for a liquid formula or like a creamy formula, but nothing that's too kind of thick, because you want that to sit really, really thin underneath your concealer, and you don't want it to kind of cake up your makeup. So you want something really thin, and it's literally just to correct the colors. And as long as you've got the right shade, it doesn't need to have like amazing longevity or anything like that. It's just to correct the tone of your skin. So I definitely think you can get away with getting one from the drugstore. I am going to link products that I think are good from the drugstore, even if I don't personally have them with me. So I will be linking them below, and I will be putting them on screen as and when I speak about them. But if you want to check them out, definitely go ahead to the info box below and click on the links so that you can go and purchase the stuff I'm talking about. Moving on to concealer. For this one, I have to say I'm in between. If you want a really high coverage concealer, like for example, I need really high coverage underneath my eyes because I have very, very dark under eye circles. So then I think it's definitely worth spending because the ones from the drugstore don't have amazing coverage. They've got good longevity, good lasting power. I know that Revlon do a really good one, and the L'Oreal True Match one is also good, but they don't have as much coverage. My favorite for good coverage is this one from Clé de Peau. It's my absolute favorite. I've used it in all my tutorials, and this is very impressive. It's a thick concealer with really, really good coverage, but at the same time, the blendability is amazing. It just blends beautifully into your skin, doesn't look cakey, is moisturizing, but at the same time is not oily, and it's just a formula that I think is very, very difficult to match. This one is very, very pricey. I think it comes at like £67 or £70, but it does last for a whole year, to be honest, because you don't need a whole lot of it because it has such high coverage. However, if you don't need such high coverage, I definitely think you can get away with using something from the drugstore, and my favorite one is this one from Maybelline, the Instant Anti-Age Eraser Eye. It does have a very, very long name. It doesn't have the most hygienic applicator. It comes with this little sponge, but it's really, really easy to apply. It's a great brightening concealer. It does have kind of medium coverage, but for me, underneath my eyes, it's not enough. However, if I have used this one is really good to highlight on top instead of using the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. So if you're going to go for something like NARS, definitely I think you can get away with spending a little bit less. It does have a bit less coverage than the NARS one, but it's okay. Maybe you can use one with a bit more coverage like the one from Revlon and then use this one on top. But yeah, if you want something more brightening rather than something really covering, you can get away with something from the drugstore. Moving on to setting powders now, I think for this one you should definitely spend. I find that anything that's sort of blending, again, like I mentioned before, it is worth a little bit of extra money. And for me, my favorite baking powder is the Laura Mercier Secret Camouflage Eye Powder. I pack this on underneath my eyes and it blends in beautifully. It kind of doesn't sit into fine lines. Even if you let it bake for a while, you can then just dust it off. It's really brightening, but at the same time, it's mattifying, and it's just an amazing powder with an amazing texture. And I find that the ones from the drugstore are not as finely milled. They do cake up a bit more. They don't have many options for loose powder as well, I have to say. So yeah, I would definitely go with the Laura Mercier if you want to spend a little bit more money on this. And in terms of like a compact setting powder, I have to say there is no replacement for the Chanel one. This one is the classic Chanel setting powder, and I have to say it's amazing. It doesn't cake up no matter how many times you reapply throughout the day. It just leaves a really flawless finish. It just kind of blurs over any imperfections when you do kind of reapply it, but at the same time, it doesn't kind of make your makeup look cakey. And yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful setting powder, and it makes your makeup last for a really long time. It's very, very finely milled, super long lasting power, amazing blendability, and I have to say I haven't found a dupe for this one. I know the Bourjois Healthy Mix powder is very, very popular and it's very good, but it's not as finely milled as this one's. And because again, powders last for such a long time. I mean, I've had this for 7 months and you have to see, like, it's still pretty much full. So honestly, it is worth the bit of extra money. Moving on to a cream contour, I definitely think this one is a safe product. I love my LA Girl Pro Conceal. I do love the Charlotte Tilbury if you want something a bit more high-end. And I have to say, the coverage is a little bit less. It blends in a little bit easier than this one. But this one is a really, really good product. It's an amazing concealer. Again, I think if you want a concealer from the drugstore with a bit more coverage, you can definitely use this one and then layer the Maybelline one over the top, because this is actually a concealer. So you can get it in a lighter shade. But I have to say, as a cream contour, because you don't need coverage, it's really, really good. It blends in pretty well. You do have to work it in a little bit more than maybe a high-end one, but it's definitely worth it. And it's only about £2, I think. So definitely worth saving on this one. Moving on to powder contour, I think definitely this one is one where I would spend, but not a huge amount. This one is the refill from the Anastasia Contour Kit, and this one is in the color Java. And I absolutely love this one. It's a really, really lovely color. It's sort of a warm color. It's really finely milled, blends in really well. The refills are only for £4, so it's definitely not a high-end product. But if you want to buy the whole palette, it is a little bit more expensive than a palette from the drugstore. But I have to say the blendability is amazing, lasting power is really good, and they're quite matte, so they look really natural on the skin. So I think these are a great option, and because you don't need the whole palette, you can definitely just buy the refills, and yeah, they're not the most comfortable to use, but you can actually use one of those kind of palettes that they sell that you can kind of put it on. It's a magnetic one, so it will stick on. And yeah, and it's a really good option, not too expensive, but at the same time, the quality is a bit better than the ones from the drugstore. Moving on to contour powder, this one is definitely one that I think, again, you should spend on because it is a powder, it needs a lot of blendability, and contour is something that you want it to look super natural. Otherwise, you're going to end up looking patchy and blotchy, and it's just not a good look. It's basically just looks like you're dirty as opposed to contoured. My favorite is the one from Rodial. As you can see, I've hit pan on it. This one is quite pricey. I think it's about £50 or £60. I will link everything below. The packaging is stunning, and it does last for a very long time. I mean, I've had this one for over 7 months. But the blendability is amazing. It's super, super finely milled, very long lasting power, doesn't go blotchy. But if you don't want to spend so much, the Anastasia contour powder in the colour Fawn is also a great option. Again, it's not as finely milled as this one, but it does have very long lasting power and blends in really, really well. So I would definitely go for that one. But I wouldn't use one from the drugstore because they don't have enough pigmentation, they don't blend very well, they can look very blotchy. So definitely this one is a spend product. Finally, for highlighter, again, this one is a spend product. It's another powder. I think definitely by far my favorite is the Becca Shimmering Skin Perfector by Jaclyn Hill in the color Champagne Pop. Highlighters are something very difficult to get right because a lot of the drugstore ones, they have a lot of kind of glitter particles, and the glitter particles are quite large because the powder is not finely milled enough. So you can end up looking like you've got glitter all over your face. It can end up looking kind of blotchy, and you can end up looking like a bit of a disco ball. So I find that highlighter is something that needs to look very natural and very, very well blended. So it doesn't look great if it doesn't blend very well. So I think it's definitely worth spending. Moving on to brows now, I think this one is definitely a save product. I love the ones from the drugstore, and my favorite ones are the ones by Eyelaw. This is like a brow powder, and this one's the one by Fleur de Force for Eyeliner, and I absolutely love this one. The powders are really good powders. They have very long lasting power. They're pretty finely milled. They don't kind of smudge around your face. They stay put, and this highlighting shadow is actually really, really nice. I wish they brought out an eyeshadow palette with her because the texture of her eyeshadows are really good and they blend pretty well. So definitely for this one, I think it's a safe product. If you're more of a pencil kind of girl, I think the brow pencil from the same line is also really good. And again, they have 2 shades like in the palette, so you can sort of customize it to your perfect shade. They do come in 3 colors, like a medium, a light, and a dark. But you can also, within that palette, customize it to the right shade, or maybe make it lighter at the front and darker at the back. The pencil is also really good quality. I actually had it, but I've run out of it. And I would definitely repurchase. It's a very reasonable price, and it's very, very good quality. It doesn't smudge, stays put. And if you use the pencil and then set it with the powder, it's the perfect combination. For brow gel, again, I think I would definitely save on this product. It's just to keep your brows set in place, and I think Eyelaw do some really good ones. There's some from L'Oreal or Maybelline, I think, as well. But yeah, they're just really good, and a brow gel is a brow gel. It's just kind of a setting sort of thing. You just want it to keep your brows in place. And as long as it's a clear gel, I think it can work really well. So definitely, I think it's a safe product. Moving on to blush now, this one is definitely a spend product. Again, it's a powder, and like I mentioned before, anything that has to be blendable, I think it's definitely worth spending a little bit on. My favorite ones are the ones from Charlotte Tilbury. They're super finely milled. You get 2 shades, so you can customize it to your perfect shade, and also you can use the kind of brighter shade in the apple of your cheek and the other one on the kind of main cheekbone area. These are amazing, super long lasting. They've got like a slight sheen to them, but they're not super glittery. I know from the drugstore the Milani powders are meant to be really, really good, the Milani blushes. I've never tried them, but for now I have to say that compared to the drugstore, I haven't found anything that compares to this. The blendability is amazing, the lasting power is much better, and again, blush is something that can go blotchy very easily, so I definitely think it's worth spending a little bit of extra money. Moving on to eye products, I think for eyeliner, definitely it's a save product. I love the ones from the drugstore. I love this liquid liner from Maybelline, and I know they do a gel liner as well, and it's also really good. Again, it's a product you don't need to blend. All you want is for it to be highly pigmented, and these ones from Maybelline definitely are. It's also got a very thin nib, so it's very easy to kind of draw on the line. I love these kind of felt tip pencil ones because it's very, very easy to draw on your eyeliner. The gel one is also really good, and it comes with like a little brush, so it's really nice. And they're really, really black. They also stay put, set in place very well, last all day. So definitely, I think they are a safe product. Moving on to eyeshadow, again, a spend product, as you could have guessed. My favorite are these palettes from Charlotte Tilbury. They're absolutely amazing. The blendability is great. The pigmentation is amazing. I'm not a huge fan of the Urban Decay shadows. I know a lot of people are, but I find them very, very pigmented and they have a lot of fallout. These ones hardly have any fallout. I do have a new favorite, the Estee Lauder ones by Victoria Beckham. Those are very, very pricey though, so I definitely think these ones are a great option. They're a little bit cheaper. You do get 4 shadows in a palette and they last really long. Pigmentation is amazing, very little fallout and very easy to blend. They're literally like butter, so I definitely think it's worth spending a little bit of extra money on these. Moving on to mascara, a definite spend product, and I don't think I've ever spent a lot of money on mascara. I have used a few high-end ones that I've kind of tried out, and I definitely don't think they're worth the money. I love this one, which is the Falsies Push-Up Drama Mascara from Maybelline. Paired with the Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara, it's amazing, but by itself, it's also really, really good. I love the brush. It's one of those plastic brushes, and I really, really like these bristles. I find them really good to separate your lashes. It's a super volumizing, super lengthening, super thickening mascara. Very long lasting power. It doesn't kind of rub off onto the bottom of my eyes, and actually a good trick so that this doesn't happen with any mascara is to set your concealer really, really well with powder. But definitely mascara, I don't think it's worth the extra money. They all are pretty much the same. You just need to get the right formula, but I think if you get the right formula in the drugstore, it's definitely not worth investing on a high-end one. Moving on to eye pencils now, I think definitely this can be a safe product. I love the one by Chantecaille and I really like the Estee Lauder Double Wear ones, but I have to say that definitely you can get away with a drugstore one. The one by Rimmel Scandaleyes are really, really good, really pigmented, they don't smudge, they stay put, and I know a few other brands do a couple of gel ones. You just need something that's going to have really, really good pigmentation, because there's nothing worse than a black liner that's not really black. So you want something that's going to stay put. Gel ones are ideal for this, but I definitely think it's not worth the extra money to buy them from a high-end brand. Moving on to lip products now, lip liner is definitely a save item. I don't have any on me right now from Maybelline, but those are my favorite ones. I will link it on the screen now. They're really good. Blendability is amazing. They stay put. They're not kind of too soft that they smudge, but they're also really pigmented and easy to blend out, and I really like them. There's a dupe for Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk, which is an absolute rage everywhere, and I think they're really, really good. But I also think the MAC ones, which are not super expensive, but they're not kind of drugstore either, are also really good. But I think you can definitely get away with something from the drugstore for this. For lipsticks, my favorite are from the drugstore. I think it's definitely a safe product. I do love some high-end lipsticks, but I definitely think that the drugstore has very, very similar formulas and they're very long-lasting. These ones from Revlon are really, really kind of my favorite. These ones are the lip butters, and this one's in the berry smoothie, and this one is Revlon Ultra HD lipstick in Magnolia. I've used this in a lot of tutorials. It's a beautiful kind of peachy nude. They have amazing texture, super buttery, super hydrating, quite long-lasting. I'm not a huge fan of liquid lipsticks, so I really like these kind of classic textured lipsticks, and I love something that's a bit sheer as well, but this one's got quite good pigmentation actually, so definitely these are really, really good. And the Color Riche ones from L'Oreal are also beautiful, and they have tons of shades, so I definitely think lipsticks is something you can definitely get from the drugstore. Finally, my last product is setting spray, and actually on this one I thought I would say spend, but I think you can definitely save. I have this one by Urban Decay, which is definitely more of a spend product, but I think the one which is the Infallible one, I believe, from L'Oreal, that one's really, really, really good. I will link it on the screen now. I'm not sure if it's called Infallible though, but that one's really amazing. Good setting power, makes your makeup last really, really long, and I think it's definitely a safe product. So that was everything from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried to run through kind of all the categories of makeup. Do let me know if there are any drugstore dupes for the spend products that you think I should try out, and maybe I will change my mind about it. But I do hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!